Hey everyone, it's Alex Burns from the Cabinets Create blog, and I wanted to take a few minutes today to do a brief review of the ESR campaign guides that are being released from the Wargaming Company. For those of us familiar with the Warhammer or Flames of War bolt action business model, these are something similar to the army books or the codexes that are released by those companies. They're designed to give the players a bit of information and a bit of further assistance in enjoying the game and playing the game. A number of them have been released, I think about 6, and the one that's sort of newest to me is the Most Awful Situation, the campaign guide for 1814 France. But we'll be looking at sort of all of the 4 that I have today, just to give sort of a brief overview of the quality of these campaign guides and the ways that they assist the player in enjoying the gaming experience. So as you look at these various game guides, they're all titled something or called something that has to do with a quote from that particular era of the Napoleonic Wars. So, example, the beginning of the 1809 campaign in Germany, or the first book of the 1809 campaign in German Central Europe, is entitled "The First Battle Lost," which is a sort of a fun commentary on something that has to do with the Aspern-Essling campaign. But it's actually comes from a letter, and you can usually find the sort of attribution of the title in the sort of the inside cover of the book, and this is from a letter from Archduke Charles. So when you open these campaign guides, first thing you're confronted with, as you might expect, is the table of contents, sort of giving you a window into the the various scenarios, which specific scenarios are in the book. Usually the uniform guides are also sort of indexed at the beginning of the book. And as you sort of proceed into the book, there's a brief introductory section that is very helpful for new players who are trying to understand how to best use these campaign guides. All of these scenarios that you find in the books are separated into sort of player expertise levels. For example, someone who is very, very new to ESR would not want to probably hop in and try playing Borodino with themselves and one other person. And so the books suggest, if you're new to the gaming system, you might want to try this battle. Or if you've been playing for a while and you have a lot of soldiers at your command, you might want to move on to something a bit more challenging. In addition to separating into layers, there's an overview of how to best use the scenario information provided with each book, as well as information on using the orders of battle, which are provided for each scenario in the game itself. So the introductory section is quite helpful for those who are sort of getting used to these campaign guides and getting used to how the Wargaming Company produces this particular series. So I want to look at a scenario, sort of a big, famous, probably challenging. You wouldn't want to start off with this from the Master of the World campaign guide, and that's covering the first part of Napoleon's invasion of Russia up through the Battle of Borodino. Something, as a professional historian, that I absolutely love about these campaign guides is each scenario has further reading suggestions. The Wargaming Company is helpfully included some various books that you could acquire or at least take a look at in order to get more information about these various conflicts that are being presented in the campaign guides. So Borodino, what do you find when you open up a specific scenario? Well, you'll find a map. Not all maps are fold out, but you'll usually find a map detailing exactly how the terrain should be set up and how specific forces should be organized on the battlefield. These maps, obviously have a legend in which the various component forces are laid out and numbered on the battle map, and then each section, you have an overall briefing for the game master or the host, as they're called in the scenario guides, to sort of set up the battle. But then each player has a briefing, or each side has a briefing, and there are maps that give that player sort of a sense of what they understand at this particular moment when the battle's beginning. So that there are briefings not only for the host, but each specific, in orders of battle, for each specific army involved in these conflicts. So here is the French, and then now we have the Russian map. From their perspective, what are they aware of? What is their knowledge base at the beginning of this specific scenario of Borodino? And then, of course, the Russian order of battle. So, not only do you find scenarios, though, in these campaign guides, you also find very, very helpful, selections of uniform plates. The Napoleonic era is one that can be very, very daunting, especially from the perspective of uniforms. For those of us more familiar with simpler uniforms and different eras of history. And so the Wargaming Company helpfully provides detailed uniform plates that you can sort of go, what does the headgear of these soldiers look like? What do their uniforms look like? And so, while they're not perhaps as detailed as someone who's familiar with the uniforms from, say, a reenacting perspective would like, for someone who's painting a 10mm wargaming figure, they really are ideal. And again, of course, you don't just find one army, the uniforms of one army present in these books. You find a whole, all of the armies that were involved in this specific campaign are representative. So here we have a lot of the French, the Austrians. Now we're in the 1813 book. We shall meet in Vienna. You can see sort of the Austrians, and helpfully the Wargaming Company is included not only what does the front of the grenadier caps for these Austrians look like, but also what do the backs look like, and then finally, we get to the Prussians. So these books are really a helpful resource for anyone trying to wargame this period using ESR and using the system that's been put out by the Wargaming Company. They're fully in color, which is quite a treat. From the perspective of sort of an aesthetic standpoint, and in addition, they're quite extensive. I mean, if you look at Games Workshop and their model, you're paying $60 for a 120-page army book guide. In this, you're paying a similar price point for a book that's almost 250 pages long. So I highly recommend these campaign guides. They have been very, very helpful in sort of picking out which armies that I want to build and which specific scenarios that I want to recreate first as I dive further into this ESR system. Thanks so much.